What is up YouTube, and welcome to this Loki episode 4 breakdown, recap, Easter eggs and review. I apologise it is up a bit late, but I wanted to make this one extra special because it really was an extra special episode. Not only did England beat Germany the other day, but this morning I got a brand new episode of Loki which blew the series wide open. Episode 4's in the MCU shown to be switching their game up a lot, with episode 4 of WandaVision being a flashback for Rambeau and showing the whole Hex, while episode 4 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier exposed US agent for the psycho he really is by murdering one of the Flag Smashers. So when an episode is called the Nexus event, you know it is going to be a big one. Well, it's also episode 4 in an MCU show, so yeah, it's a pretty much a given. We open with Sylvie as a child, playing with her toys, and yes, that is the same actress as Judith Grimes on The Walking Dead, and she's recounting and playing with her toys a story of a dragon attacking Asgard and a Valkyrie defeating it. Now this story must be early in Asgardian history, as next to the Viking longship is a wolf which could be Fenrir, and that was the same wolf that served Hela during the Asgardian expansion. There's the Valkyrie as well, so it's clearly before Hela's rebellion and her first defeat, and before the Valkyries got absolutely massacred. There are Asgardian dragons in the comics, so this was a really cool, neat Easter egg. Now, she's taken pretty much instantly by the TVA. I also thought it was pretty neat how Sylvie was actually taken through all of the booking, all of the processing, and they even showed us the actual gate where you have to go through, and it has to prove you have a soul, which is really interesting now that we know at the end the timekeepers are actually androids or robots. It was a very nice little reference over to the first episode when Loki was very confused at why he had to go through that weird machine, and it does hint at maybe a more android thing going forward. Maybe androids are the things that can bring down the whole TVA. And throughout the episode the question is raised, what is her Nexus event? We never actually learn this, and at the later part of the episode Ravonna does mock her after Sylvie says how it was a huge thing she was taken as a child by simply saying she doesn't remember, and she clearly does because you can catch her doing a small little smirk. Ravonna is probably furious that Sylvie escaped from her when she was a hunter and Sylvie stole a tempad. Could it be that Sylvie was not going to turn evil like the mainline Loki and thus carry on the MCU event of the Sacred Timeline? But the question is, are we actually in the MCU timeline? There are some questions. We know it was Thor who loved the Valkyries and wanted to hilariously be one when he was a kid, as we found out in Thor Ragnarok. Maybe, just maybe, they swapped over the love of the Valkyrie myth, and as she is a female, maybe she wanted to actually be a Valkyrie, and she could, and maybe even restart them there if this was set after the fall of Hela. Also curious is how her hair is darker, and I really want to see Sylvie go to Boots and just box dye her hair like a MySpace scene kid. We see Ravonna speak to the timekeepers who look ominous, only for them to be revealed as kind of something out of Five Nights at Freddy's looking asses. But by the end of the episode, well, we got quite a lot, and I'll go into that as the video goes on. She is more sus than ever as she tells Mobius that C20 died due to the enchantment messing with her head. She also looks away and has similar mannerisms to other times in other episodes that she's lying, with always looking away, changing of her tone when she is pretending to tell the truth. She looks away only briefly, which is a good tell she's lying, and she always sounds exasperated each time Mobius tries to get the truth, but she has to lie even more. Of course we know this is, well, a complete lie that C20 is dead, as we found out in the episode. C20 knew she was a variant, saying it's true, it's damn true. I hope you get that reference, wrestling fans. Now, She knew when she was enchanted, which is why Ravonna handled her debrief, and also why Mobius is not allowed to meet Sylvie and Interrogator unless she spilled all the beans that she and everyone else is a variant. Now, in the actual interrogation, Ravonna also briefly looked like she was looking at someone else. So I do wonder what she was actually looking at. She could have been looking at the Time Theatre screen, or she could have just been looking at someone else. Of course, Mobius does find out all of this, leading to him to be deleted. F's in the chat for the jet ski enthusiast. But of course, he's not really dead, as we would later learn. Mobius does look, and well, he does find out that, well, she is deceased, which may mean that C20's fate is definitely that she's dead. But if they all went to the Timekeepers, maybe that's the only way someone can be fully deleted out of the timeline. Now, while Ravonna was a hunter in the past, she clearly rose through the ranks here, and I'm very curious as to how she knew what was going on. Did she hatch a plan with who created the TVA, or were the Timekeepers subverted and overthrown and replaced with decoys? We may never know. Well, I hope we do. We all knew Loki and Sylvie would survive Lamentis, and to be honest, it was beyond obvious that they would be found and a door would open. However, Mobius and the TVA had to find them, which ended up with a clue being shown that a nexus event is happening. Now, this nexus event is different to the other ones we've seen in the show, as it spikes heavily in an upward trajectory. Now, in episode 2, it was implied that nexus events don't exist in apocalypse size, which is why it's so easy for people to actually hide there, and this one is special. Now, there are some clues as to why this has happened, where Sylvie asks what makes a Loki. Is it that they're destined to always lose? But, well, Loki says, well, they don't die. They may lose, but they still exist, just like Loki has done throughout the entirety of the MCU thus far. They reach a peace, and Mobius in the episode does hint that they fall in love, but yeah, I don't think that kind of love. I think the Nexus event does happen because they were never meant to get on. Loki variants just probably backstab each other, but these ones are different, and Loki hasn't been himself. He's vastly different to the Avengers persona and matches more of that of his Ragnarok persona, which I found very weird. The Nexus event also is created, I think, as Sylvie touches Loki, which, well, that then creates it. They have a bond, which I think is more platonic than anything. However, Loki and Sylvie are arrested, and I found it funny that she has the most security out of all of them, and Mobius genuinely looked furious, like his friend had betrayed him. We get more accurate Hunter lookalikes from the comics, with one of them having the eye visors from the comics. He was furious with him, and he didn't go for them, mocking him being the god of mischief and always failing, etc. like Loki. He just called him a bad friend, which, oh boy, I think that probably cut a bit deeper for him, and leaves him in a time loop with Lady Sif. Yes, Lady Sif supremacy has happened. She is furious that the god of mischief has cut her hair. But this is a deep dive into Norse mythology. Of course, the whole of the Thor world in the MCU is based not only on the Thor comics, but also the legendary Norse folklore. Now, in the Norse myth, Sif had golden hair until it was cut off by Loki, and she had to replace it with a wig. It's a very, very, very cool callback to the basis of these characters that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby used to reimagine the folklore into the comics world. Lady Sif has been barely seen in the MCU since the Dark World, with only a mention in Ragnarok, and the poor actress had to simply explain where she was during Infinity War and Endgame with her being snapped, despite her being a fan favourite. It was nice seeing her again, as especially she was one of the scarce bunch of people to feature not only in the MCU but also in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We deserved better for that. This was used to soften the God of Mischief so Mobius can interrogate him. It also matches up with the progression of him and Sylvie's connection, as Sif says he will always be alone, and in the time loop he accepts who he is, and he has somewhat of a bit of a humility moment. It also reminded me of Doctor Strange in his loop of bargaining with Dormammu. Lady Sif, I've come to bargain. He's interrogated after Mobius actually was refused the opportunity to speak to Sylvie, which, yes, that is a weird one, and Mobius even mentions that he took Krees, Titans, and, wait, hold on, vampires? Well, we know that Blade is coming to the MCU, and vampires have gone as far back as the 40s in Marvel Comics, and in the 70s we even had Dracula, the legendary vampire who had his own comic, and is featured heavily, even making deals with Doctor Doom. And yeah, more on that man in a bit. Clearly a setup for the Blade franchise there is the iconic half-human, half-vampire hybrid, whose mother was killed by Deacon Frost, leading the pair to tangle many, many times. As well as this, it could also be a reference to Mobius, which has a really weird connection to the Spider-Man movies in the trailers, with some crossover there, possibly, but yeah, I'm not holding my breath. Now, even Titans is a big one, possibly hinting at a variant of Thanos who failed. Could you imagine being a Thanos and then going and getting all the stones and then clicking your fingers the wrong way and then you get arrested? That's absolutely hilarious, and it could be a possible connection to Eternals there. Now, Loki is being interrogated was a big one, as he tricks, or at least tries to trick Mobius, who has seen through his lies and calls his bluff by casually mentioning how he loves Sylvie and, well, says that she was pruned to show how much he cares. And Loki says she's not his girlfriend, which I do believe, because that would be really weird. He says how they hatched a plan many years ago when she came to him on Asgard, but Mobius knows it's all BS. Loki tells Mobius everything, who, due to decades of indoctrination, does not believe him, and he's taken away. But Hunter B-15 heard it all and heads to Sylvie to get her to take her to Roxcart to expose everything. Now, it's weird that we don't see B-15's memories, but, well, it's explained that new memories can't be given. Sylvie just has to work with what she's given, and I did say when I was watching it to my girlfriend that, well, yeah, the reason they all have code names is because they're going to possibly turn out to be someone big in Marvel Comics. Maybe. I'd love it if she was in Renslayer's position or high up at the TVA and overthrown by, well, Renslayer if the Timekeepers were replaced and, well, everyone was forgotten, which is probably a bit too much there. Ravonna also gaslights Mobius over what happened with C-20, but he takes her tempad and, man, she really needs to take better care of that thing. He finally sees for himself that C-20 was of sound mind and not crazy. Now, it's weird that we didn't see C-20's actual deletion, and again, I do think that maybe the Chamber of the Timekeepers is where you actually fully die. However, Ravonna is onto him and brings hunters to him, and Mobius answers the question from earlier in Ravonna's office about where he would go if he could go anywhere. Now he knows the truth. He wishes to go where he is really from, after initially saying that he loved his work and wanted to stay there, as, well, he can go anywhere anyway. He now wants to maybe find a life where he had a jet ski, and I do believe maybe he was a jet ski racer sponsored by Just Energy. He is deleted or pruned. Well, I'm excited to see him link up with Loki there in the weird Battleworld thing that's going on at the end. And Loki does end up in a world of a broken New York, complete with Avengers Tower. The body language doesn't look to me like Loki was about to kiss his would-be girlfriend, and I do think that he does recognise her as more of an equal. This is because when he was referred to as a superior Loki by Mobius, he didn't accept that. He just wanted to find someone who is on the same wavelength as him. Now, Loki is taken as Sylvie is also taken, and while Sylvie's room was under guard, I guess, well, yes, Ravonna did not expect C-15 to go rogue, and I thought it was odd they decided to go ahead with what they were doing despite not knowing where C-15 was and putting an alert out for her. Now, Ravonna also smirks over Sylvie asking about her Nexus event, and like I said, Ravonna clearly knows. It's a huge formative event for Sylvie, and it being trivialised here clearly cuts deep as her usual witty and smug self disappears, and even though she is facing away and hidden, her face says it all. Loki and Sylvie do look genuinely scared as they see the Timekeepers. The story can also be seen more in people's facial reactions, as when Mobius was actually deleted, Ravonna did look disgusted with what she had to do, and maybe she isn't evil, she's just been told an absolute another pack of lies. The room where the Timekeepers are does look like the painting of MC Escher and stairs going in different directions, combined with Penrose stairs, or also known as the Impossible Stairs. It's parodied many times and is usually a visual representation of the never-ending path of time and reality, which, fits neatly here. The Timekeepers in the comics were created by the very last TVA director, He Who Remains. They look like janky Hall of Presidents style robots, which needs entirely with them being androids. Now, there is a question. Did someone simply create the TVA for their own gain, or replace the Timekeepers with these androids? In the comics, the Time Twisters were created to survive the next cycle of the universe. They went back every 3,000 years and let Earth be destroyed. It matches up with the multiverse reality being destroyed, and maybe we're on a cycle so often leading to a war each time. They would team with the Mortis and prune realities they didn't like. That's very much what we're seeing here. Now, one of them says that they are, or at least the prisoners, are nothing but cosmic disappointments. It implies that the architect of the TVA is actually taking special variants of each person who are subservient for their own gain. I think they were brought here to be judged and indoctrinated, but it didn't work as B-15 releases them, and I'd imagine that she took the sword of Sylvie, which was used as a trophy, from Ravonna's trophy cabinet. And they fight, leading Sylvie to lop the head off one of the Timekeepers after having that sword thrown to her. And the fighting, some people have said they didn't like. I kind of liked it. It was what it was. And it's very, very Wizard of Oz, as a so-called creator is revealed to be nothing, which we see here. The other two power down as they inspect the head, and while being very much like Oz, it's eerily similar to The Last Jedi, with the supposed fate of the First Order Snoke being killed, who we would later learn was simply a patsy, a clone, or a puppet, much like the Timekeepers are here. Now, Loki asks who made the TVA, which is key, and why did they not just, fake it all? What is going on? I like to think that the timeline has gone through countless resets, with the architect trying to get it right so everyone is submissive, similar to the Matrix, and Kang behind it all. Again, you can compare this to the scene where Neo met the architect in the Matrix sequels, and Loki is deleted by Ravonna as Sylvie wrestles control and says, "You're going to tell me everything." Again, I do think that it is more of a platonic relationship to me. The key is, how did Ravonna go from hunter to judge and de facto operational leader? Something key is missing, with the Nexus event being key, and also what Ravonna knows. There must be a reason, and well, why are they so adamant on keeping the timelines as it is? Because Sylvie is the opposite, knowing that the universe has to be free from constraint and needs chaos. I am sure Sam Wilson absolutely loves, well, if he saw this, he would love it, as it has the big three: androids, aliens, and wizards. In another callback, we have the third character in a series turn bad, despite being presented as initially good, with the sword director John Walker and now Ravonna. Now, Loki wakes up thinking he's finally ended up in hell, but he's reassured it's not yet, as he sees three variants of himself. The scene is almost frame for frame like the Avengers, where he gets up from his ass whooping and sees the Avengers, and the angle of the shot is pretty much the same here. Now, in a shot, we see Richard E. Grant as an older Loki, a young Loki, alligator Loki, and another Loki who is a hammer, who is known as boastful Loki, and looks like a steampunk Mjolnir. The older Loki is pretty much in a version of Loki's first outfit from way back in Journey into Mystery. It's not exact, but it matches up with the comic book outfits from Vision and Wanda in, well, WandaVision. He may well be the old Loki who manipulated young Loki in Agents of Asgard, who we also see here, who is very different to his previous self after being reborn and wanting to be a force for good. However, the credits list him as classic Loki. They're in a ravaged New York, and my instant thought was Battleworld. If the multiverse reality being destroyed by a war is Secret Wars, well, before Secret Wars, Doctor Doom stole the power to save the multiverse by creating a planet of the remnants of the multiverse. It was named Battleworld, and each had a domain that featured iconic comics from the multiverse such as Marvel Zombies and the Ultimate Imprint. There was created the Thor Corps to kind of divvy out justice, and even had the Frog Thor as well, who is leaked to appear in the show. So to me, when you were deleted, you could be sent to this battle world. Luckily, Reed Richards did save the day, and what if Doctor Doom had created this new world and used the sacred timeline to get variants? Heck, he even had a time platform in the comics. It's a wild one at least, but there's also the idea that Ultron had returned, and we see maybe the comic book version of Age of Ultron, caused by time traveling, which I don't think. And personally, I would still bet my money on it being Kang behind all of this, and it's just a place to dump the trash. And I'd love it if Gamora did pop up as she went missing at the end of Endgame. I mean, Ravonna's number is A23, and that's the appearance of Kang fighting the Avengers, and was her first appearance in that comic, Avengers 23. No doubt Mobius will be here too, and I kind of ship Loki and Mobius. Lobius, if you will. I also love how Kid Loki is yet another young Avenger in an episode where we have young Sylvie, who was also in the Young Avengers for, a couple of minutes. The question is, why were they saved? Well, Lamentis, Loki says they never die. Maybe whoever is behind this realised that and just moved them somewhere where it's better for them. But in leaked images, we know that Mobius is coming back and he is in a similar world, so we will have to see what happens next. So let me know what you think down in the comments. That was possibly one of the longest videos I think I've ever made, so do subscribe with notifications if you want more. I'm shattered. I'm going to go and edit this. I'll see you soon. Have a great day and goodbye.